Hey y'all, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. This is another collective comrade. Now we are going to talk about the American Friends Service Committee. I had a quick, short-lived internship with them while we were in Tucson back in 2014. And AFSC is the acronym, and that is how I learned about ALEC, which I talk about all the time. The American Legislative Executive Committee, because I was doing some research in Excel sheets for them, for AFSC, about ALEC and about which politicians were being bought and sold by ALEC. Okay? So AFSC is, American Friends Service Committee promotes a world free of violence, inequality, and oppression. Guided by the Quaker belief in the divine light within each person, we nourish the seeds of change and the respect for human life to fundamentally transform our societies and institutions. We work with people and partners worldwide of all faiths and backgrounds to meet urgent community needs, challenge injustice, and build peace. I will put the website below. Like I said, I was doing some work on the incarceration side of things, and I was doing research around the private prisons versus the like taxpayer prisons, because this was like 10 years ago. So I mean, it was still in the beginning stages where corporations or like private prisons, the privatization of prisons. So I was making spreadsheets of like how much it was to make a phone call in a private prison versus the taxpayer prisons and things like that. How much the food costs and stuff. I was doing a lot of that information, as well as learning about ALEC and which politicians were in cahoots with that, right? Let me go to ALEC's website quick. Let me copy this. So we talk about ALEC all the time, and I remember this was just such a game changer in my life at this point in time. This was like the same semester I was going off all of my medication, liberating myself from the pharmaceutical industry, reclaiming my own personal journey. And so to be doing work about incarceration as a formerly incarcerated person was really, really, really profound. I had made it through that system, and now I was getting my master's degree, and doing this work to support the community efforts. It felt so fucking dope, okay? ALEC. We're gonna look up ALEC. American Legislative Exchange Council. Oops, my bad, I've been saying that wrong. Whatever, Executive Committee, whatever. They're all words. Empowering states, shaping America's future. Ugh. Okay, so ALEC is, I just have I don't know if you guys have a visual memory. I just remember sitting at the table in this organization at AFSC in Tucson, learning about ALEC, and it was like in the very beginning parts of me decolonizing from, like red and blue, like Democrats and Republicans. This was like the aha moment of my life where I was like, oh, they all work together. That makes sense. Some just play off like they're better than others, but ultimately they all have the same goal in mind, which is complete obedience and control of the masses. Hi, that's us. Right? Let me read some of these words that they've put together to tell you about this. I'll put ALEC's website in here too, just because in my brain, ALEC is not a good situation. I want you to know that. The American Friends Service Committee is. That's a local, like I said, they're rooted in Quaker beliefs. If you're not familiar with Quaker beliefs, those are like the OG abolitionists back in the day, right? The white folks who stood up against the oppressors for the rights of the oppressed, right? Enslaved folks, okay? I guess we don't really need to, it's just in my brain, it's such a clear connection because I was there. So anyway, let's look at some of AFSC's projects and some of the things that they are doing. Like I said, I did research for them. I remember them having, the one in Tucson having like a partnership to the community for families of incarcerated folks, which is why I was doing the research I was doing. They are going for an arms embargo, yay, ceasefire for Palestine. You can get involved at their website, Stop Deportations, Support Peace with Justice Today, The Crisis in Gaza, We Must Act Now to Stop This Genocide, 6 Ways to Support Immigrants' Rights, Myanmar Earthquake Response, Sowing the Seeds of Justice, Trump was right to engage with North Korea, he should do it again, I don't know what that means. Those are articles that people have written. AFSC was funded in 1970 to create alternatives to military service during World War I. Since then, we have stood with communities taking bold action to overcome violence, inequality, and oppression. Right on. I like AFSC, so I was like I wanted to be like Amnesty International. And then I had a canvassing job with Amnesty International in LA, and I realized that they were just as corrupt because they're like this giant, the money that we were getting people to canvass on was not going where it was said to be going. And that was so heartbreaking for me because, like I said, I really wanted to climb the ladder within Amnesty International. I've always had a fuck ton of respect, both in my undergrad. If you don't know Amnesty International, this isn't about that, but they're a global AFSC, but like at a global scale, and more corrupt at this point because they are so large. Again, I will get behind some of the things that they do in the initiatives. I appreciate their research and their ability to get access into spaces. But again, following the money, there's a lot of inconsistencies. And that's what happens with a lot of these NGOs, which is a non-government or organization or nonprofit. They get to a certain level where it's paper. It's a paper tiger, which is a term for people who are just pushing policy, not really doing the work, which is why the whole point I shared that is because looking back at AFSC right now, it's abundantly clear that they are doing the same work as Amnesty, or Amnesty did at one point, but at a different scale and at a more pure scale, because they are coming from that Quaker background, right? Like, they're not going to get bought and sold. So highly recommend. They are I'm pretty sure they're a nonprofit. It's a .org. So yeah. But yeah, go ahead and get involved there. They do have an office in Tucson. Let me see if there's any other. There's a lot of organizations in Tucson. Great human rights place to be. AFSC office locations. If you want to get involved, office directory. They have offices in California, Georgia, Illinois, Massachusetts, Cambodia, Guatemala, Jordan, and Kenya. Arizona's not listed. That's interesting. There's definitely one in Arizona, in Tucson. But yeah, you can go here. You can see they have all of the people associated listed with their, place. If you're looking for some, internship, volunteership, faith in humanity, AFSC is a great place to start. I will put in the website below. Have a good one.